today our guest is Rebecca Ruiz from Time to Leap. Rebecca Ruiz is the founder of Time to Leap, a business development consulting and coaching company with a passion for innovation and the human side of technology. Time to Leap uses creativity and a non-cookie cutter approach to supporting technology founders and technology businesses with getting their products out to market and into the hands of their users. Rebecca herself has more than a decade's worth of experience in BDM as a sales professional and account management. In addition to running Time to Leap, she's also business development manager for Dress for Success and a corporate speaker. So welcome to the show, Rebecca. We're excited to have you here. We thought we'd start at the very beginning since we love an origin story. We'd love to hear about, give us some history around Time to Leap and how it all started.
Sure. Well, I was obviously employed full-time up until last year, and my domain, Time to Leap, was actually set aside for launching a podcast one day. I had probably bought the domain about a year and a half beforehand, and I just had that sitting there. I was like, I'm going to launch a podcast. It's going to happen. But it didn't end up being a podcast name. I resigned from my full-time position in software development in October last year, and I didn't have a job to go to. I just thought, I'm just going to have a rest. I'm going to have a break. But when I did put open for work on LinkedIn, I got approached by a couple of people that I knew in business, and they said to me, we are launching second businesses. They're both for the clients. And they said to me, we don't need somebody full-time, but we're looking for somebody to do some business development and sales consulting per se for us. What do you think? And I was like, I was just going to get a job, let's be honest, have a couple of months off, get a job and just be done with it. But it kind of made me to start to think, well, maybe I can do this. Maybe I will. So my business kind of started for me rather than me start a business. I had 2 clients at the door, and in January I opened my doors. So that's kind of how it happened, with 2 clients there and a big learning curve basically for me. And the Time to Leap brand was already there. Like, I already had the domain there, and I was like, well, it makes sense to use that name. It's a great name. It's helping businesses leap. So I kept with that, and that's kind of how it happened. Like I said, it happened for me.
Cool. I feel like it's a little serendipitous,
It was not the plan, but I kind of am glad it happened that way, because I think if I had been focused on growing a business, maybe it wouldn't have happened the way it did. But it just happened, and I was like, all right, it looks like it's just happening. I'll run with it and see where it goes. So far, so good.
Love it. So you mentioned that you got 2 clients. If you're allowed to, do you know what sort of area or who was that first client that you worked with? Just to give the listeners a bit of an idea.
So the first client, funny enough, was a software developer. So I had just come out of the industry, and the client at the time, he was launching a new software development company, and he approached me and he sort of said, look, I need help with the background and the foundation work, all of the manuals, all of that sort of side of things, and the knowledge and the education around launching an app. What does software development entail? All of those things. So I worked with him for 6 months. I'm no longer working for him anymore, but it was a really great experience because I just come out of that industry. I had all of the up-to-date knowledge. I know that industry like the back of my hand, just being in there for a couple of years when I was employed full-time. So it was sort of an easy transition that kind of just was there. So I was like, okay.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you mainly deal with software companies, or do you work around other industries? What does that landscape look like for you?
Well, I was working mostly for the first 6 months in my business with the service-based industry, so software developers. I did have an animation studio I was working with as well, which was really awesome. And I did sort of just change more to product focused in June. Well, June I made that decision, so July onwards. just because when I was working for a software developer, we used to have a lot of founders coming through that were building apps, or business owners, building a second part of their business, which was an app or system or something like that. And a lot of them just had no support. They had to learn the technology part, but they had no support on the business development, how to go launch, the customer journey, all of those things. I saw that over and over again. And when I was employed, I could offer a little bit of insight, but there was only so much I could, give insight to. And I just thought, well, what about them? They need support. Products are really fun as well, because you get to learn ins and outs of that product, that user, that customer, what does that look like? So I decided to go more into that because I knew there was a massive need. There is a big niche there because nobody's really doing it. And I know in Perth anyway. And they need that support. So I chose that. So it is still on the software side, but it's more the founder side now. And I love it so far. It's great.
That's really, really cool. I like that because that fits really well with what we are trying to achieve in Branducopia, is trying to educate business owners and those founders on how to basically approach these things. So, so can you just give me a little bit more of a background of how you take them from how you provide that support with the product-based side? And then I'll ask some other question. Yeah.
Well, I don't, because I'm just me in my business, so I can have their approach where I will meet them where they're at, which is the bonus at the moment, why it is completely custom consulting. I can work with them pre-launch, so they're in development, for example. They need to come up with the systems. I am quite structured with the processes and systems, and I can create those for them and customize that for them. So I do a lot of that. I love that part. That's my favorite part, and referral funnels, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So I create that for them. So it could be pre-launch, it could be post-launch. So they've already launched. They're looking to take it to the next level. They could be in a future phase. So when you're in software development, usually phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So they could be in various stages, but it's just when they need that support, when they know they need to build better processes, they need to get their product into the hands of more users, essentially. So I will sort of, when I sit down with them, I meet them where they're at. What are you looking to do? Where you're at currently? How can I help? What process do you have in place? What do you not have in place? And then working with them around that. And I will create a custom package for them saying, well, I have standard packages, but it would be a bit customized with what's included. Yes, so it's working with them because like technology or branding, for example, everybody's got a unique story, a unique product. It's all different. So I think coming down the custom route is really mainly about the customer I'm helping, but also the users at the end of the day, because they're the ones they're going to be impacted by the messaging, the branding, how it's going out to market as well.
So. Yeah, that's really cool. So then you obviously see from, you're saying like the product side, but you also see you've come from the software, the other side, the actual development side. So you've got best of both worlds. So when it comes to creating new software or a new app, can you run us through the stages from idea to product? And if you've got an example of a business, you don't have to say names or anything. Obviously, there's a lot of privacy or confidentiality stuff, but just so that people understand what the stages are.
Sure. So it isn't really quite a standard stage. I did work for what you would call a custom software developer. So it is a fully custom coded app or system, because obviously you have the low code, no code, and then fully customized. So just to clarify that, it's the full custom that I know. So usually customers would come when I worked for the previous developer or in general. So they've usually got an idea. Most of the time we're sitting on the idea for quite a long time. It might be an idea completely outside. It's a new business. It's a startup. It could be a current business that have seen the need in their own business for their own customers or internal, bit of both, could be anything. So they're sitting on this idea, and usually it's when they're taken that like chance basically to say, well, I want to find out if I can build this idea essentially into something. I'll use an app as an example because that's a little bit easier to probably to say how it works.
Yep.
So the customer would come in this case now I would help them find a developer if they don't have one, if they're at that stage. If they've already got a developer, that's great. So it's usually the idea stage, mapping out what that idea stage looks like. So when they sit down with a developer, usually the developer would ask them a lot of questions about their target market, who are they helping, what's essential that they want in that first build stage, which is called a minimal viable product most of the time. And the developer would sort of say, okay, yes, you've done enough market research, you're ready to go. If not, you send them away to do more market research because it isn't a cheap exercise. You've got to make sure that you are really ready and knowing who is your customer and an idea of your brand as well, let's be honest. So usually they'd go away to do a bit more market research. When they're ready, they come back and then they go into what we call scoping. So scoping out the project, mapping out what that looks like. And usually the basic wireframes go in there at that time as well. So we've got to have an idea of, rough design. It doesn't have to be 100% at that stage, but just mapping that out on wireframes. And usually they are not the prettiest wireframes, but they're enough to get an idea about what that journey would look like. So that's that first stage. Sometimes the customers would straight away go on to build. Sometimes they would pause there if they're going for funding. So sometimes they need to go for funding in that before they go to the build of the first phase build or the minimal viable product build. If they're ready, they go straight into build. That usually takes a basic app 3 to 4 months. So it's not a quick journey, sometimes longer if it's a bit more complicated. Could take up to 6 months and beyond, let's be honest. So they do the build, and during the build, developers work on a 2-week sprint cycle. So every 2 weeks, the customer will be updated based on this is what's been done. Then they get updates every so often to be able to play basically and look what's been done. The design is done through this process as well alongside the development. So usually sometimes you'll have the design in-house with the developer, or sometimes it's separate, just depends. And then they will launch to the App Store, release, and then depending on the customer, whether they go to a second phase, they wait for a while in market and then they build on. It just depends. But the journey is quite a long one. It is quite pricey, let's be honest, because there's a lot of work that goes into that. Technology customized with the client in mind. It is, very unique to their brand and who they are. So, but it's a great journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so with that, is there any misconceptions or mindsets that you find you've dealt with on someone who's trying to develop an app or a software, that they have preconceived ideas? Is there common things,
There is.
Because I can imagine just myself assuming stuff. Yeah. What are they?
Well, I guess that's kind of why I chose my niche, let's be honest, because you get ideas when they're at the very early stages and they're in the market research. They're like, I'll just build it and they will come. And I was like, it's not going to happen. Because how many apps are on the App Store? Thousands, millions, let's be honest. So it's actually been really smart and mapping out the technology part. Usually the technology part's always looked after. What technology we're using, what are we building with, what does that look like? That's always working for a developer, that's done perfectly in the scoping. You know exactly what you're building. But on the other side, who are your customers in more detail? What does your brand look like? Whether it's your business brand, your app brand, your personal brand, we need to talk about that probably too.
Yeah.
Because the owner is like the face of their business, let's be honest. So they've got to have good personal brand. And a building business development, when they do launch or they go to beta round or whatever it looks like when they launch, to be actually ready and for users to know they exist, basically. So, yeah, sometimes that's a misconception for sure. So getting them educated, I think, is super key, to be honest.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then, so you come in with Time to Leap, now with the product focus. Can you assist then on any stage? Do you find that people tend to come to you in the beginning, or when they're sort of, I don't know, at a different stage, or how have you found it?
I found a lot pre-launch, which I think is great, because getting it right at that stage, I think, because then the foundation can be laid basically really well before they launch. But obviously I completely understand if they've already done a launch, it wouldn't actually matter stepping into the next phase. Like for me, I think there's always going to be ways to improve no matter which stage they're at. So I think anybody in the first couple of years, I can definitely help if they're not getting that product into the users' hands, basically. We've obviously got work to do, or they want to take that next level in their business. So I'm finding pre-launch, but absolutely can help at any stages, because even though they might need help, when they've already launched, you'd be looking at referral partners. Who are the referral partners? How can you build that so they can build, their user base that way? So it's just a straight get the hands of the users. There's a lot of other strategic areas that you can work with. So the company or the app owner or system owner can leverage a lot of different areas and markets to sort of help them get that product out there a bit further. So it's more strategic rather than just putting the app out there. Yeah, so having a plan,
crossing fingers.
Yeah, and that's really important.
Yeah,
and I think working as a BDM for a long time and in different industries, but you've always got to have a strategy behind what you do.
100%.
So question, circling back about, you've touched on, so obviously you've got your clients, but your clients' clients, the people that are purchasing the app. How do you, what's the process, or how do you go about investigating what that buyer actually wants, and how that you're building an app that's appropriate for that specific target audience? Because I think, from a software point of view, from a geek, I love a piece of software and I like all the shiny things. I would be the worst client in the world because I would want all the shiny things. So obviously you would probably have to rein a few things in, but yeah, what's that process look like for you and your clients and their customers?
Well, it just depends on what stage. Like if they're pre-launched, but the ones I've picked up already know their niche. So I haven't had to do that market research from the beginning stages. But if they were in the very early stages, we would go through that market research together, before the development. So if they're at that stage, we would do, always doing interviews with potential clients is the best way. I think, most of us in business have done those interviews at different levels to sort of say, this is what I'm thinking of launching. What do you think? Or getting, that feedback, whether it's through a survey or calls or, so doing that piece. Seeing what else is out there in the app world. So is there any competitors? What does it look like? What do they do well? What do they not do well? And really having that really high level piece. So it can help with that side of things. If they're already pre-launch, they kind of know their customers, but it's still that refinement part. It's like looking at, okay, we know the customers. If we go out, we launch, getting feedback, getting case studies. What do you like? What don't you like? What would you like to see in the next build, in next round? And so there's always, that refinement of customers. And, things will change over time, let's be honest. Like all businesses, no matter what their tech, branding, it doesn't matter. There will be always that change in, customer. And sometimes the customers might surprise you. There might be a bit more in one area than another area you thought. So it's keep finding that out, keep getting the feedback from the customers and seeing which niche they're in as well. Because some apps or some systems in for a particular area, say resource sector, that could be for resource sector, and it's a little bit more refined. But a general app that's more for like a social media or something like that, it's going to be out to many, many people. So it just depends on what type of project or product they're working on or they've built. And then working with is it business to business, business to customer?
Yeah.
Like business to customers is a whole other beast, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But business to business is a little bit easier, I think, because that's the sector, the main sectors, and who are they? What do they look like? But customers can be anywhere. Consumers. So different.
Yeah. I feel like there's so many elements to like just platform app development that I had no idea about, right? Even the few things that you've touched on, I'm like, very interesting. You've provided a lot of tips there as well. Is there any, like obviously feedback is key from all of these customers. Is that your number one like tip for anyone that's looking to build or looking at doing that scoping piece of an app? Is that like go out to their audiences and just get information? Is that what we're looking at?
I would say always do your market research really well, like, and know who your customers are. Like, I know that it will change a little bit as you go along. It's never going to be perfect in initial stages, but find that there is really a need for what you're going to build before you build it. And find out what's actually out there. Like I said, what's been done really well, what hasn't been done, and if you find a gap in the market, great, go for it. And if you are going to build, make sure you have a really great developer. That is absolutely key to your success.
Yeah.
Research, get people that to refer. I can help with that. And if you are wanting to, because you're in Australia and you want to claim what they call R&D, so research and tax development incentive, you need to have the work done in Australia. The research and development tax part needs to be done in Australia. So that's a tip that I would always say. If you do pick an offshore developer and they're completely offshore, then you'll miss out on the R&D aspect. So that is a huge amount of money that you could have in your pocket. And then speaking to an R&D tax person in your initial stages as well, because you can find out about how that works, and that would help you pick a developer too. So, there's just a few tips. I'd always recommend having at least, if you are going to pick an offshore developer, to have somebody that is Australia and offshore. A mix, just to make sure that you can have that, or pick a complete onshore in Australia developer, just for those reasons, because it can save you a lot of money in the future. And security and safety and things like that as well. Yeah. That's another beast. Let's not talk about
I feel like that reminds me a little bit of my corporate days. No, I feel like great hot take on the R&D. Like that's such a great one.
Yeah, and because it's a huge amount of opportunity and money that they can get back, and and that's part of your market research stages as well, like talking to the R&D accountant, finding out about grants that are available in the innovation space. There's so many, WA is pretty good. There is a pretty good community where you can find out more information. So, there's newsletters, there's events you can go to, like Space Cubed, etc., and learn about all these things. So, Innovation Australia as well. So,
So you obviously have, having worked in the industry now, you have collaboration. So you would know who would be good to go to where and referral for your clients who work with you? Because I can imagine it's overwhelming, because they would probably know, if they're starting off fresh, don't know who to go and speak to, right?
Definitely. So I'd always recommend, speak to at least two, make a decision. But some would be better off with a bit of a bigger developer company, or one that's, a lot smaller, that's a little bit more, boutique, is good option. So it just depends on the client. I think it's talking to them and like what stages they're at, what do they need? Do they need a little bit more time spent with them? Maybe a smaller company is a little bit better for that. If they don't need that support as much, a bigger company, they have bigger teams and, the bigger they can do more in the sense of technology-wise. So it really depends. If it's an uncomplicated app, then it wouldn't really matter. But then you can get to the very complicated stuff, which I won't talk about. So there's specialists in those particular areas when you're going in custom. So you're maybe having to find a developer that, codes in that language per se, or there's many factors. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, wow, there's a lot to go with that.
Yeah, it was a big learning curve when I did start working for a developer since I had come from outside of the industry. So definitely I learned a lot in almost those 2 years. So,
yeah, I can imagine. So obviously the logistics and the operation side is critical. So you touched on it about branding and knowing your customer. So, brand personality, I can imagine, and avatars and that. So when it comes to branding, how important is branding in what you do and the advice that you give to your clients?
Well, obviously, if you're developing a product, brand is super, super key because people, if you've got an app from the App Store, for example, they're going to be looking at the branding in the sense of the colours, the name, how does it feel, how does it look, that side of things. So obviously getting that right is key, and that can change over time. And obviously the website, a lot of the people are probably going to the website to find out more information. Education, so even though that's not branding, but it kind of is because it's educating about the brand, educating how the customer helps the customer. So that side, but also that personal brand part, like I mentioned, if they're the owner of the app or owner of the system, they've also got to put their best foot forward. How do they show up themselves? How do they represent themselves and their brand? Because that's, I think, really important. A lot of the owners can be technology people. So it's a little bit sometimes out of their comfort zone to show up in the brand perspective. They're great at behind the scenes. They're great at the design part quite a lot of the time, but being out there is quite a different environment for them. Not all, but some. So showing up with the personal brand, showing up with the brand online, and it's a combination of that, because that's how they're going to be successful.
Yeah. I think having that, strong branding, as you know.
Of course,
that's right. Yeah, it's so important. And coupled with the strategy, it's dynamic. So do you have any examples that you have worked with on how like the branding has helped with the product base? Yeah, does it? Got any ideas of examples?
I mean, I can't really say because this would be through my previous company. So NDA, can't say exactly the niche or anything like that. But I did see a client, and I'll keep it really brief so I don't give anything away.
Yeah, very high level.
They had an app that was for a really niche market. So it was a women-based market, and they had to really look at that brand really key, like how that would look like and how that would represent the message they were trying to get across. So it was an educational-based app, and it was educating women. That's probably about all I can say. But that brand part was super, super key, and for the ladies to feel comfortable to use the app and to be educated based on the resources that it was providing. So it had to feel and look a certain way in order for that engagement. So I think that you're kind of having to look at the look of it, but you're having to look at the feel of it. And there's so much more, as we both all know in this room here, how important that is, because it's not just, that looks pretty. It's not about that, actually. That's very superficial level. It's got to be that next level. So I think it's really looking at the target market or the users. Who are they, and how would those colours, that brand, and how that would feel. And when you're building an app, it's obviously that user journey as well, not just the brand. The screens, the buttons are in certain places, so you can have the web version, which will be different, but then the design part on an app is different because the screen's smaller. How does that journey look like? And it's testing when you're working with product development too, to make sure that works. And I'll tell you, a lot of the time you are adjusting before you launch. It's completely normal because the button maybe needs to be here and I need to go away and fix the code so the button's on the other side, or it comes from the design side. It just depends. But yeah, it's really looking at the users from the high level, and that, I think, the feel. I think that's important. That's something important to me. So when I'm using something like an app, I want it to feel good, easy to use, but also that user journey. So I think that's what I would say to anybody. How do they feel using a product, an app, for example? So when they're thinking about building, what do they like of an app they currently use? The branding, the feel, all those things. So I hope that answered it, because I couldn't answer it exactly.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I'm assuming that, like, with prototyping and that, a lot of that market research also would come back and be like, well, why is this not being clicked, or why is this not functioning there? And so it's obviously re-looking at it, and it's actually fascinating because it's human behavior, right? Yeah. So and then looking at, like, the hot parts of what is it they call it, Jess, the hot parts of
the hot spots.
The hot spots, of where it should be sitting. So no, I think that answered it really well. And just to follow on with that, at what stage should businesses start looking at their branding and even their personal branding for a new piece of software?
I would recommend in your market research, because you're out there, either you're talking to your potential customers, users, you're doing your market research, you're looking at other apps already in the market or other tech products in the market, whatever that is, platform, app, etc. So use that time to start working out what your brand looks like. So you start to map out an idea, what's the colours the other companies have used? Does that represent the target market? And it's creating like a bit of a list, while they are doing the research. So that's something, I can help with if they need that, or just going online and just, market research questions, and starting to map out their brand, even though they'll come to a developer to do the scoping and the wireframes. You still got to have an idea what that brand would look like from their perspective. Maybe it would change and tweaked a little bit, but I think it's so key to start at the beginning, and the brand grows with them as well, because a product is an evolving product. It keeps moving, it keeps evolving. Technology is always moving so fast. So the brand will grow, but start the foundation to start with the idea, because I think that's the best way forward. And just be open to letting it go and move and flow from that point on.
Cool.
So further to how, technology changes and all that sort of stuff, and I feel like this is a very hot topic, AI. We all love AI. I love AI. Not everyone likes AI. So in your industry, obviously it's having quite a big impact in many, many industries, but I'd love to know in the software development space, what is like super exciting about AI and how it's impacting maybe the development of softwares or how things are deployed? Like, what does that look like?
Well, because I'm not a developer.
Not a developer, but
in the industry. It does change things, and I think from a custom coded side of things, people are, getting code off AI. You've got to be quite careful, because
how do you feel about that?
I think it's risky, let's be honest, really risky. Yep. Just because you don't know where does the code come from, because AI is the good part of the web, the dark web. It's everything in between.
Yeah.
So you're accessing information from everywhere. So from that side, I don't think it's a good thing. But I think AI is a great tool in the sense for any business owner to, utilize the opportunities just to, for ideas. I mean, I don't use AI word for word or anything like that, but I think it's a great tool to use. Are you creating some content? Give an idea of that, an idea of a structure, for example, that you might have done before. So just using it as a tool, I think it's fantastic. From a software perspective, I would say you've got to be very careful. But from a business owner's perspective, I think it's just another tool that we've got in our bag that we can use essentially. And I think, using everything in moderation is okay. And I mean, I have to admit it's more the Google Bard and ChatGPT for me that I would look at. I don't use DALL-E or anything like that level.
No.
But, it just depends on the business owner, I think, and what works for them. But it is a good tool to have. And everybody's, talking about it, and it's going to just keep evolving as it goes. Let's be honest. It's just going to keep getting more and more. So, yeah. So Jess, you love AI, I'm guessing, so you said.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a fan. It's a shiny object. I jumped on the bandwagon and I've been checking it out, and it's quite interesting. I find that a lot of people are like, you don't need a web developer anymore. You don't need this person. You don't need branding. You don't need an app developer because AI can do it for you. But I personally, in that space, you can't take that human element away from that side of things. I hope that will never be replaced like that. But I completely agree. Creating content as a business owner, having it in your arsenal to be able to come up with some copy, and obviously not word for word, but be able to spark ideas. It's great. But yeah, I've never tried DALL-E. I don't know if you have, Alicia.
No, that's something really new to me. I just know Bard and ChatGPT, and then I came across another one recently that will actually produce rap and poetry and songs. It will help. So there's all these things.
Very much so.
Yeah. No. Oh, well, that's exciting. So on the other side of things, with the increase of global awareness of data, privacy and security issues, how do you approach that with your clients? Because obviously people have concerns, and me and you have spoken, Rebecca, about this before, about data privacy and security.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they're like I said about the developer, so they're choosing a developer to work with. That's part of that, is to make sure that they're using a reputable developer. They know where the app or system is being created. So even if it's offshore, it's not a problem. But just making sure that security side of things, and then obviously when you're going to the App Store and all of those things, you've got to just keep that security level, and where is your data being stored. So you can choose basically, where your data is. Is it stored in Australia? Is it stored offshore? You make that decision in that stage. So obviously if you're an Australian company, you probably want your data onshore, let's be honest. Just keeps it a little bit safer. AWS is usually the main one most people use, but some of the others. So looking where that's stored. And from a security perspective, I think this is really for any business owner, making sure you've got your password protection, making sure you're doing all your updates, keeping all your clients' data safe. And that's for anybody, really, general business owners. So just having all that security in place to make sure that you do the best of your ability to keep everything safe. But I think from a product owner, that's that next level when you are working with technology, having your data safe onshore, because you've got all of those customers' details. Their email addresses, their phone numbers, maybe when they are doing that sign up. So I think it's probably even more key for my customers to be that next level, and to make sure everything is always secure. And that's why when you have developed an app or a system, you always have that ongoing maintenance with a developer. They recommend that, because if somebody tries to breach the product or there's a bug or something like that, you've always got a developer there to fix it. So I think that's always key as well for customers' perspective.
Yeah. So I've got two other questions. Sorry, Jess.
No, you go for it.
That's just spring to mind. And one is if you could tell your client one thing where what can they start with to help the process in the initial stages of working with developers or yourself, like one thing that they can do preemptively before the process of what you've said from start to finish?
Just when they're going out to doing the research, that's like the foundation of everything is research and market research. So, doing that well really is like knowing what they want to build, knowing who the competitors out there, and understanding about who their target market is, and doing that research, doing the calls, doing the surveys, finding out where they are. Say if they're in Perth, for example, where are they hanging out? Like, can I go to a networking event and just ask people or meet some people that are looking to build an app, for example? So just finding that out and doing that well. Like it doesn't have to be perfect, but you've got to know that you validate the idea before you go to the developer, even though the developer might send you away to do a bit more market research. As long as you've done that market research piece in the initial stages, and also for them to be aware that they've been in it for the long haul as well. Like it's not a quick thing. It is a longer process to build. So just for them to be prepared for that, that journey that they're going to go on. But I think let's be honest, it's no different to a business journey because it's like constantly growing, evolving, learning. It's the same process really. It's just happens to be a piece of software instead or a product. Yeah. So foundation-wise, just doing that well, like your research for a business. It's the same thing, but it's probably like that another level because you bring in technology or innovation.
And last question, then I'll hand it over to Jess, is a lot of people get overwhelmed with like the funding or like the cost of software. And I know, and I've chatted with you, Rebecca, on this before, but say a small business or someone has an idea and they approach you and they approach this idea of a software or a new product. How do you talk to them about the costings and obviously it's not just you, but because it's a big project when you start rolling it out and you want it done well. So can you provide some input into that?
It is quite a costly experience. So if they're an existing business, it's going to be a little bit easier because they've already got the funding, they've already got the cash flow. So they're building from that perspective, and that's going to be easier. But if they're from a startup, and there's a lot of startups coming through at the moment in the last couple of years, the shake-up of everything that's happened is people saying, well, look, I've been wanting to do this for ages. I'm going to go look at this path. So from a startup perspective, they, might be employed full-time. They're doing this on the side. So funding's actually super key. They're going to need funding a lot of the time. And if their job can't fund this build, then they're going to have to look for investors. So Perth is pretty good now, but I have to admit female founders, it's still a little bit more of a struggle to get funding, which is horrible to say, but it is a bit more challenging. There is now a female-funded fund in Perth, which is great, finally. But, it's looking for funding opportunities, and so you can just go out to those areas where a lot of the startups are, asking them questions, have you got funding? Where did you get funding from? How does that look like? And getting an idea of others that are going funding or have got funding, really just educating themselves as much as possible. How do you go for a funding application? They usually have to include a pitch deck. Sometimes it's a prototype, which is basically wireframes that are clickable. So you have an idea about how that works. The developer can create that as part of the scoping. That helps them obviously walk an investor through the project. Sometimes the scoping part is included in that. So education, and also having access to knowing where all the grants are coming out. There's a lot of innovation grants at different times of year. There was a really good one that was quite well funded this year. They did put it up. So the Australian government, especially the WA government, are starting to put more money towards it, which is key. So always keeping an eye out on the grants, what's available, the investors, and then also just talking to others in the same area. I think that's really key. Just being with other startups going in the community. There is quite a large community, like Morning Startup, for example, which is on Meetup. That's a great place to start. There's a lot of education there, and a lot of other startups in the first couple of years, and even ones that have just got ideas and they're looking to take that next step and they're just learning. So finding where the people are and learning from that, learning about investors, grants, R&D, for example, and just learning as much as possible, and that just helps them with their next stage. And they're constantly going to be learning, let's be honest, but that's the best place to start. And funding is one of the biggest pain points of startups, especially in place. Because they need a lot more capital than somebody that could just start a business. They need the capital to be able to create the technology. And yes, there is no code options. You can do an app a lot cheaper, and for some businesses that is a good way to start as well, rather than going down the full custom route. So also looking at those options too, which can be they could build a no code option or get somebody to do that, get that out to market quicker, and then look to do a custom in the future. Maybe it's more expensive and timely and costly that way, but it just honestly depends on the business. So looking with that business in mind. And for that founder to educate themselves in all areas. And if they don't know, that's when they can go to the community, come to somebody like me, a good developer, and learn, basically. Ask questions.
Love it. That's brilliant. I found it quite interesting about the funding and I did hear a stat around funding for female businesses recently, and it was quite appalling, let's be honest. So any women out there who want to build apps, Rebecca's your lady.
Well, it's got to get better. It just has to. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. So, look, thank you so much. We're going to wrap this one up because we just want to touch on one few more things that could be quite exciting in your industry at the moment. So just wondering what our audiences could look forward to in the software development space. Are there any advancements or changes that you foresee in the industry that could be a little bit exciting or that you're excited about?
Well, because I'm kind of working on the other side now, I think technology is constantly always evolving. There's always going to be opportunities in the software space. And, for the developer side, they're always learning and growing. So I'm non-developer, but from that side, I'm kind of excited to just sort of see there's a lot more, especially in Perth, there's a lot more investors starting to pop up, grants, money is available and things like that. So they are starting to put more money towards innovation, and the industry is starting to see more advancement from the founder side, which I think is really exciting because it was so needed. And like I said, funding is the biggest challenge of those startups. So I'm excited to see where that goes. And I'm also excited to see some, more amazing products coming out of Perth, for example, and Australia in general. Because that's, there's so much new technology around at all times. So it's just going to get better and better. And, the combination of AI and the way just the tech industry is going, it's moving super fast.
Yes.
But I think as long as the users and the customers get that benefit, then I think it's great. Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes in the next few years, let's be honest.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much. Just to finish things off, we'd like to just let our listeners know where they can find you.
Yeah, so probably best on my website. So it's just www.timeteleap.com.au, or they can just type my name in on LinkedIn if they want to connect there. So that's the easiest way.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much, Rebecca. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love talking about all this sort of stuff. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it being on the show, basically. It was really great.
Yeah, this was an exciting one. I was looking forward to this. I feel like it's an interesting space that, unless you're obviously within the space, I don't think it's spoken. It's like an enigma. Like, yeah, very much so. And doing that BD work as well, with that knowledge, it would be so valuable.
Yeah, it's not a women-based industry either. Like, I'm quite rare.
Yes, you're a rare bird.
I am in that industry. Like, when I was working employed, like, I was the only woman in that field as a BDM, and now, like, that's why I'm so passionate about the female founder side. So yeah,
I love it. I love it so much. Oh, look, thank you. It's been great. I'm so glad. It's so chuffed I get to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Alicia, I have to see you sometime soon. It's been
I know. It's been a while. I know. Even Elaine, she says to me, I think she invited me to something for next month because she's so busy. She's booked me in a month in advance. I said, okay, I'm coming.
I haven't seen Elaine in ages either.
Yeah. Do you go to many of the? Because you guys go to the what is it? I see the guy, the networking Perth networking group, or what's that?
Perth? Oh, I'm not in it. I'm not in it anymore. I was, because when I worked at Blue Sky, I was on there. But I am going to the event on Wednesday, but under Dress for Success, which is lovely because it's about personal brand. But I'm not in that network anymore. So I hope Elaine's there. It was so nice to see her.
Yeah, because she goes to that a bit. I don't go to that, but yeah, I see that, and I thought that you guys would catch up there. But no, that's okay. Well, we will have to organise. I will ping you an email. I'll be like, hello.
Sounds good. Let's organise something with Elaine because I haven't seen her in so long as well.
Yeah.
And Jess, are you in Perth or you're not in Perth?
No, I'm in Melbourne. Yes, so I will live vicariously through Alicia.
Okay, I was going to say you can come too, but it might be a bit far.
Yeah, I'll just put my phone up. You see, I'll just put my phone up, and then she can be part of the conversation.
Well, if you're ever in Melbourne, let me know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, brilliant. Just quickly before we go, so I'll just give you the next steps, my next little spiel. So what we'll be doing is we will be contacting you throughout the process. Obviously, we have a lot of work ahead of us. So we'll be doing all our editing, etc., over the next couple of months. And we'll just keep in contact. We'll also be creating all of like videos and shorts and social media and graphics and copy, and which we will be giving to you so that you can circulate it within your communities as well. And then finally, that's it. So that's it for now.
Yeah, I think. Also,
I was going to say something else. Change my mind.
Yeah, no, that's all good. Also, because this is going to be, it's obviously video recording, and this we edited for YouTube, and then there'll be a publication, which just hearing about your information, like I think via imagery, right? Or like, oh my gosh, I can do this with the content that you've just said, Rebecca. So I might come back to you. I probably will, because I feel like there's even like a process mapping thing based on what you said. So just to fact check, yeah. Because it just makes it visually a bit more, for those that are reading it to understand it, along with the copy, along with your information. So I hope that's okay if I do that. Yeah, okay.
You kind of want to get that right, because if a listener is thinking about a build, like you want to have that idea and offer valuable information for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than, it's better to be exact. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm excited.
Yeah.
So, like, you've obviously got quite a few more interviews. Is it just women that you're interviewing, men as well? Or?
There's more women.
There's
Which
more
was
women than men.
not intentional, right, Rebecca? It wasn't. I was just like speaking to Jess the other day. I was like, do you realise we've got a bit more women than men?
Like a lot more.
Yeah.
But I think as well, it's obviously it was businesses that resonate with us that we want to talk about as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing.
Yeah. And we've picked topics from like yourself in the software world. I didn't know that you changed to product-based business. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. It kind of just happened and I haven't caught up with you. So
yeah, I haven't. So, but I love hearing it from your perspective because like you speak so well about the industry and in layman terms as well. So yeah, we're talking to yourself, to some brand strategists, to even like bookkeepers, because the whole concept is that there's a lot of information out there for brands or for businesses. And I read a statistic that within 7 months, business owners fail and they don't, like at least 70% of business owners fail and they don't continue on because I feel like they don't know what they don't know, if that makes sense. So it's a resource and it's, so there's about 23 people or 20.
Cool.
Yeah. So,
Amazing.
And this is a first, and then the idea is to do it each year. So your details will go on to like the directory that
on the website.
the website. And it's just a resource because there's a lot of cowboys out there as well. You know what it's like, Rebecca. Yeah. So that's the essence of it. I hope I've explained that well.
Oh, it's exciting. I'm excited for you all. So
yeah.
Amazing. A lot of work, but amazing.
Yeah.
But super excited that you'd be part of it as well. Like
yeah. That's
Thanks
right.
for asking me.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's what Jess was saying. It's the people we want to speak to that's actually, like we had someone earlier on this morning and she just exudes passion and she like what you see on her website is exactly what she is like in real life. And I feel like it's the same with you. Like what you see is what you get. You very much you respect both parties, like the product and then the client, and then the developers. Like there's no, cowboyish.
No cowboying here.
So, and that's the thing. Yeah. So there you go. I'm waffling.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
No, brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep you informed with everything.
Yeah.
So you know how we're going. But yeah, there's a little bit to do. But we're super excited to share it with everyone when it is ready. So yeah, I'm glad you could be part of it.
Oh, thank you so much. Good luck for your other interviews. And I look forward to hearing updates as you go along.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Rebecca. You're awesome. All right.
Thanks, Rebecca.
All right. I'll let you go. See you. Bye.
Bye.